Heritage languages. What are they and why might they be more difficult to learn than just starting a language from scratch? Welcome everyone, I'm Bettina. I am a language coach and language tutor. I have been teaching English as a second language or as a foreign language since 2009. I have been doing so online since 2014. I have worked with students in every age group across all parts of the globe, and it has been wonderful. So in these videos, I aim to share what I've learned over the years and to help those people who want to develop a personalized, custom game plan for their language learning, the people who want to fast track their language learning, and those who really just need a little bit of accountability for their learning. If that is you, please stay tuned, have fun watching the video. If any of that sounds like it may be something that you could use, please also check the description for additional information. But I will talk more on that later. First, let's talk heritage languages. What is a heritage language? A heritage language, in my opinion, does not get enough press in the language learning world. And this is a language that you learned as a child, or it is the language of your family. But for whatever reason, you've lost this language. It is not technically your mother tongue. You may not be fluent in it, anything like that. So I will use myself as an example. My heritage language is German. My mother was the only American in her family. Her parents emigrated from Germany, and her brother and sister were both born in Germany. My father came to the United States at the age of 18 from Austria. So when I was born, the prevalent language in the house around me, because I had my parents, I had aunts and uncles nearby, I had my grandparents, it was all German, only German. And so the first language that I spoke as a baby was German. And I did well with German up until I was roughly about 5 years old. And what happened then was a number of things. First, I started school. Actually, I started school earlier than that, at preschool at age 3. So I was exposed to more English, and I had to use English outside of the home more. Secondly, my father learned enough English that he could start to converse more easily in English, and he wanted to do that. Of course, he's now in the United States. He wants to speak English. And let's see what else. Oh, my grandmother passed away when I was 3 years old, and she had been the main one speaking the most with myself and my sister. So after she passed away, my grandfather, a few years later, he remarried and he moved further away. My aunts and uncles moved away. They went back home. They moved away. So essentially all of my little German family cocoon disappeared. And also, my parents, even though I still heard my entire life, I would continue to hear German around me when my family would visit and when they would talk to each other. But I was never required to respond in German. I was never required to continue learning German. So it essentially died out of my life. And I have regretted this for my entire life. It has been, this may be a new theme now, but this, I think, is a big problem for heritage language learners. Our families don't understand what a huge heartbreak this is for us, because this is our first integration into our family. This is our heritage. This is our being, what we're surrounded by. And when we come to the realization at some point in our childhood, maybe early adulthood, that we are not really a part of that because we never properly learned the language. It is heartbreaking. It is terrible. And many times, a heritage language learner will then want to relearn or continue to learn their heritage language. And that's when the problems start. Believe me, I know. I have spent over 40 years trying to learn what should have been my mother tongue, trying to learn the language that I should be fluent in. So this is the top reason why this is bringing us into the top reason why heritage language learning is so difficult. It's because it's much more frustrating in many ways than just learning a language from scratch. And I say this because I've done both. I have my heritage language, I learned Spanish in school, I dabbled in a couple of other languages. And the thing is, when it is a language that I have no personal connection to, that I'm just learning out of interest or because someone told me I had to learn this language, it doesn't matter to me as much if I make mistakes in that language. It doesn't matter as much if I don't get very far in the language. It's, take it or leave it, and I work with those languages as I have the motivation to do so. However, this is not the case with the heritage language. The heritage language, I don't want to make mistakes because this is my family's language. I should be able to speak to my family, right? That's the thought. That's the feeling and the mental process. I should know this. I should know it because it was my first language, but I don't know it. And it is very frustrating. The other thing is, and this goes along a little bit with what I just said, there is this expectation versus reality. So if we are learning a language from scratch, we don't have a high expectation because we know that we don't know the language. We have to learn first. However, that's not the case with the heritage language because very often we have very good comprehension skills. So we think that our level is up here. But when we try to use the language, we find out our level is down here. And that is demoralizing, to say the least. So there is this vast disconnect between what we expect to be able to do in the language and what we are able to do in the language. I've already mentioned there is a greater emotional connection to the language. So this kind of raises the stakes. I don't want to fail in this language. If I fail in this language, I failed in my heritage. It can become very dramatic. So this is problematic as well. And lastly, I want to talk about, now I mentioned the comprehension skills. So this is important. With a heritage language learner, very often we have a very skewed skill level for different things. If you are learning a language from scratch, it's more likely that you are learning in a balanced way. You're learning to read and write and speak and listen all at the same time. Especially if you are learning a language in a classroom setting. That is the whole point. They will force you to have more of a balance in this. If you're learning on your own, it depends on what your language goals are and how you've structured your learning. But for the most part, when you learn from scratch, you're learning in a balanced way. When you are a heritage learner, you will find that maybe you will have a very high listening comprehension level. This is me. I can understand almost everything in German, so long as it's conversational. I don't have any professional vocabulary. So if I had to go to a doctor's office or a lawyer's office or anything like that, I would be lost. But just a conversation on the street, I have no problem. Okay? However, comprehension does not equal out to speaking ability, does not equal out to active vocabulary. I have a very large passive vocabulary, words that I know in passing, but I would not know if you asked me, what is the word for this? Words that I know in context, but I would not know if I see that word by itself. So there are vastly different levels going on. The other thing is reading and writing, for example. I can read in German. I can read novels in German. I enjoy it, actually. I readily admit I do not understand the vast majority of vocabulary, and this is again because my active vocabulary is very low. But remember that passive vocabulary? That's what helps me. All of those words I don't know, I don't necessarily need to know to follow the plot. I can follow the plot of a novel, and in most cases, I can get through the entire book and I will know exactly what happened. If you want me to give you an overview, I can do that. But fine detail, individual words, no. Writing a letter by myself without translating through Google, no. Those things I cannot do. My grammar is atrocious. It's absolutely horrible. And yet, if I'm given a test, and this is how I got through all of my university classes, unfortunately, I did not improve when I was taking German in university because, one, I could understand the teacher. I knew what was going on, so I didn't have to try very hard. Two, the tests, it didn't matter if I didn't know the right answer because I could look at my options and say, oh, this sounds right. I don't know why it's right. I don't know the grammatical structure, but this sounds better. And most of the time I was correct because I have spent my entire life hearing the correct structure, but I have not practiced using that structure. So if I have to say something myself, 7 out of 10 times, I will get it wrong. I won't get the words wrong necessarily, but I will get the word order wrong. I will get the cases wrong. So all of this to say, these are the major frustrations for heritage language learners. Our skill levels in these 4 main parts of language, reading, writing, speaking, listening, are all over the place. So with that kind of a background, it becomes very difficult to try and find a way to learn the things that we are lacking. And believe me, I've tried. I've gone through multiple classes. Initially, I believed, oh, I have to go to a class. I have to do it the traditional way because that was all I knew. So I went to classes. As said, I passed all of my university classes. I did very well. I went to visit my grandmother in Austria. She told me I spoke worse than I did before because now I was thinking about it too much. I went to another class, a local class in town, and I didn't know what level I was in because I had never been tested in my German. And so my teacher, she put me into the intermediate level because of my very bad grammar skills. So for vocabulary and grammar, I needed the intermediate class. However, she was very nice and allowed me to sit in on the advanced classes because verbally, as far as listening comprehension and ability to get my point across verbally, I was in the advanced group. So what do you do with that as a learner when you're trying to learn the language yourself? Well, we're going to talk about that. By the way, if by the end of this video you decide that what I'm saying has some value, first remember to like the video, pretty please, that would be great. Secondly, remember to subscribe because I will have a lot more of this information of all the things I've learned as a teacher over the years. And third, please remember I am here to help you. This is my point and purpose in life. This is my career. If you need someone to help you put together a language learning plan, something completely customized to you and what you need, I can do that. I can help you with that. I can provide you the building blocks. You will find that in a booklet I have listed in the description on how to fast track your language learning. So you can do it completely on your own, or if you want some help with it, you can book a session with me. I have both coaching sessions and accountability sessions. Any questions you have, just let me know. All right, but back to the video. How do we go about learning our heritage language? Because it is different from learning from scratch. What I would say is, first, look at your language skills realistically, evaluate them in those 4 segments that I mentioned: the reading, writing, listening, speaking. Okay? Understand, know at the beginning that you will have very big discrepancies between some of them. It's almost guaranteed that you will have big skill level gaps. Okay? So because of that, we're going to need to learn things differently. Secondly, understand why you want to relearn your heritage language. Is it because you want to reconnect to your family heritage, your culture? Have you, for whatever reason, been completely cut off from them and you want to relearn where your family came from? Are you like me, where you just didn't get the opportunity to interact in that side of things during your life? Maybe you have family members who only speak that language and you want to be able to speak with them. That was my grandparents. Well, my grandparents didn't speak any English, and I went to them in the summer, and it was interesting. we got by, but I never, during the lifetime of my grandparents, I was never able to have a full, in-depth conversation with any of them, and that is one of my biggest regrets in life. It really is. So understand why you want to relearn your heritage language, because this will help you in formulating your plan for how to get there. Next, you're going to want to actually create that plan. And I would say create that plan with reminders. Add in reminders of the things that are going to frustrate you, because you're going to, if you're anything like me, you will treat it like you treat any other language learning, and you will become massively frustrated because this is not like any other language learning. And we need to remind ourselves of that. It's different, so factor that in. And lastly, stick to it. Stick to it. Remember, if you need an accountability buddy, that's me. Look in the description. I will help. Trust me, I understand. Okay, so to give just hopefully a brief example, I will again use me as the example. I know that my listening comprehension is high. So what does that mean? That means that 9 times out of 10, I choose the easy route and I start listening to things in German. I listen to books, podcasts, movies, what have you, because, oh, this will help me learn the language. No, Bettina, you have spent over 40 years now listening to German. Is not going to help you speak. Understand this. So I know that any listening exercises for me is only to keep the language in the background. It is not going to help me reach my goals. What are my goals? Well, let's say I want to speak. All right. Oh, great. Easy. Okay, so I'm just going to get on the phone with my dad, with my aunt, with my friend in Switzerland, and I'm just going to speak. Now, this is a problem that I addressed in the intermediate plateau video, but it is the same for heritage language learners. Do not count on friends and family and just speaking to help you, because you will very quickly find that 1, your friends and family will not correct you. 2, you will not be able to speak as fluidly as you want to, even though we know this coming in. We know we're doing this because we know we can't speak fluently, but we want to. This is our family. These are our friends. This is the language we should have learned like a native. We want to be fluent immediately, so that will not work if you're having a conversation with someone you care about. What you need to do is have a conversation with a tutor. Find a teacher and have a plan. I will go into this in more detail when I put up a video on how to get the most out of tutoring sessions. But for right now, just know that you're going to have to become humble and go back to basics. If you want to expand vocabulary, you need to find that vocabulary, you need to bring it to your tutoring session, and you need to actively try to use it. Say, I want to use these words, help me use these words. Let's make sentences. If you want to work on more complicated grammatical structures, find sentences that you like. Find sentences and say, oh, I want to know how to use that. Bring those to your tutoring session and work slowly. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Work on the same paragraph, the same speaking themes for a week before you change it. It's going to be work, but it really is, in my opinion, the only way that you're going to get to where you want to be. And it doesn't have to be all day, every day. These exercises are for your active learning time, whether that's a half an hour a day, an hour a day, whatever time you have put aside for your active learning or for your tutoring sessions. These are the exercises. Now, the whole rest of your day, the whole rest of your week, do whatever you like. Read a book in that heritage language, watch a movie in that heritage language, listen to podcasts, do all the things, but have a focus for your active learning. That's what I'm going to say on that. All right, I think I covered all of the themes that I wanted to talk about today. So if you are like me, if you are a heritage language learner, I have found that there is not a lot of information about that out there on YouTube. There's a lot of language learning information, but it's mostly people learning a language from scratch. And you may have found, as I did, that this is not the case for most heritage language learners, and we have our own frustrations in language learning. We can apply many of the same principles and activities, but we have to learn how to do it in a different way that's going to be effective for us in our particular situations. So please keep me in mind if that is you, because I am on this same journey with you. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you continue to join me on these videos, and let's see how it works out for each of us. I will give updates, and I hope to hear updates from you as well. So until next time, I hope you have a wonderful